We cannot possibly grow nor have a sense of self without relationships. So it turns out that relationships are absolutely fundamental to spiritual growth and psychological growth and development. And you'll see in a minute, they're actually fundamental to God's own self-realization. God could not know itself without relationship. Some of you in the dream workshop will recognize this diagram, so we'll go through it again. Up here you have Wu Qi. Wu means not, Qi means life, or this is non-being, or unconditional love, or zero. That which is unconditional cannot know itself. To know something is a condition. In order to know or experience itself, God dreams. God cannot think itself into relationships because you have to have a duality to think, and zero is 2 steps removed from duality, which is mind. The act of God dreaming itself into existence creates the first relationship, which is the divine soul or monad. And that soul is made up of the 2 mythological creatures or beings, one called Shakti, which represents the womb or intelligent energy, the feminine of God. The dot in the center, which is also the Nada Bindu point in the Tantra conception or creation mythology, is Shiva. So Shakti holds in her womb her dream. God dreams Shakti into existence. Shakti dreams Shiva into existence. Shiva represents her husband, her consort, her lover, her friend, and her children. But Shiva actually represents all the things created in the material cosmos, whether it be universe or multiverse. Anything weighable, measurable, that you can measure or perceive as something is the domain of Shiva. So interestingly, the God of the Abrahamic religions is actually the God of material things, the God of everything. They don't really have a feminine conception, which is why those religions are broken from the beginning. They don't have a female expression of the divine. There is some in the Hebrew conception, which Mark Goffney expresses quite nicely, but you don't actually see it in the day-to-day teachings and understandings. It's only the mystics of those religions that get it. So what happens is Shakti becomes the subject. So Shakti, the divine feminine, her subject, her sense of self-knowing, self-awareness, is actually God's consciousness inside of her. She gives birth to Shiva. Shiva sees Shakti and says, "Oh, my beloved," but doesn't realize that his ability to perceive her is actually Shakti within him. Your first lesson in relationships is that you each carry Shakti and Shiva inside of you. Shakti is the emptiness of your mind that allows you to have thoughts, feelings, emotions, and images. If your mind was already full, there'd be no way you could have thoughts, feelings, emotion, or images. So Shakti is the subjective aspect of you that's capable of listening and perceiving. Shiva is anything that manifests in your mind. So if I say right now, think of an elephant with 6 legs and an image pops up, that's Shiva. That's something you can perceive. If you're thinking a thought like, I wonder what I'm going to have for dinner, that's Shiva, because Shakti has to be there to give the thought something to be experienced within. So that's the subject. The object is anything that you can recognize inside of yourself. Shakti is also represented in all the hollow spaces of your body. So your colon, your small intestine, your stomach, for example, are hollow organs. So those in Chinese medicine are called feminine or yin organs. Your liver and your kidneys, for example, are solid. They're called yang organs. But the kidney's job is to filter your blood, which is a liquid. So there you see the liquid blood is Shakti. It's the feminine, and the organ itself is masculine. So your lungs are empty, Shakti, but you fill them with air, Shiva. So when you get to the depth of Taoism, traditional Chinese medicine, Tantra, you see the same archetypal patterns emerging, just with different names. If you haven't figured it out yet, what I'm telling you is that the first relationship that you encounter is that which is within yourself. Because when you say the words I am, the I of you is the perceiver, it's God. That's the consciousness of God in you that is unbound. It does not have any action. It's everywhere and nowhere. It's infinite. So it's the dance floor upon which phenomena dance. Thoughts, feelings, and emotions are phenomena. That's important to realize, because this is why I say we're all Ram Dass. We're all God workers. God's using you. You're being used.
Are you confused about your life's purpose or wondering why you're really here? Don't feel alone. It's pretty common today. Guess what? You can join my Spirit Gym community, have access to my Master Key lessons, and get my support and guidance and the support of our awesome community to find your life's purpose and do all the inner work necessary to really resolve unresolved challenges, heal, grow, and identify exactly why you're here and what gems you came to give the world. If you want to join us, you're welcome to join my Spirit Gym community.
In the Hebrew conception of Eros, God penetrates and creates novelty. God never does anything twice. There will never be another one of you. Even your own soul cannot reincarnate as the same Kirsty or Paul again. Because to grow, you have to reincarnate at a different time, place, culture, family, and circumstances, or you would be just basically going around in a circle. There would be no evolution. So in a nutshell, the first thing you got to learn to manage in yourself is the forces of the feminine and the forces of the masculine, which is what breathes you and makes your heart beat, makes you hungry, makes you horny, makes you want to exercise. It's what's driving your instincts. Most people have a terrible relationship with their instincts and their body to begin with, and it would warn you that it's unlikely that you're going to have a better relationship with a person than you do with yourself. And if you do, it will be a pathology that will end up causing you trouble, because you're going to fall into the trap of giving yourself away to other people at the expense of meeting your own survival needs, which is the we before I crisis. So here you see the first relationship in God is the subject of Shakti, and the Shakti, the object of Shiva. Here you see Shakti carry Shiva inside of her, and Shiva has nothing to create but more of Shakti, because actually he is made of Shakti and just doesn't realize it. And this is the problem with men. They don't realize that women control everything, including their mind and their sex organs. When we look then at the fundamental nature of love, which comes from this relationship, God's desire to experience love in relation. You can only experience love in relationship. You can't even love yourself without this relationship. Desire comes from the emptiness of God, which is Shakti. Zero is the Wu Chi, the pure potential. VE, volt electron, is the masculine force of Shiva. To the degree that one desires, they will. Desire and will are always reciprocal actions. The more you desire to win, the harder you will train, for example. The more you desire a mate, the more you will go out of your way to do what you got to do to get that mate. Yin, again, represents the subject of you, which is the perceptual faculty. Yang is the object that you are perceiving, even if it's your own thoughts. This is the womb of creation, and the progeny is everything that comes out of the womb of creation, which is within you. So when we get to the issue of relationship, one of you is always the lover, and the other one's the beloved. So when you say I, that's the subject, love, you, that's the beloved. That's how a mind is created. So another thing to realize is that every relationship creates a mind of its own. You might want to write that down. Every relationship creates a mind of its own. Certainly, those of you that are mature enough to be in my training program have had multiple relationships. And if you look back on them, I'd be willing to bet my house that you could not assure me that you had another relationship that was exactly the same as another relationship that you were in. In other words, no woman could assure me that she was in a relationship with two men, even identical twins, that was the same. It ain't gonna happen for a million reasons. A mind is created whenever you have the flow of energy. Shakti is intelligent energy. Whenever you have the flow of energy and information between 2 points of sentience, you now have a mind. So Kirsty's partner is Michael. This is Kirsty, this is Michael. The two of them create a mind. If you understand the basics of how a mind works and how dangerous a mind can be, you'll understand that a relationship actually has to be managed the same way a mind has to be managed. A mind can create anything, good or bad. It's almost always people's minds that damage their relationships, and it's the mind of the relationship that has to be worked on. Bodies are only attractive for a little while. I could admittedly say I've had girlfriends that were stunningly beautiful, that within a few months drove me absolutely fucking out of my mind. And every day they get less attractive. And I'm sure it's the same for women too. I'm just not a woman, so I can't vouch for that aspect of it. The other thing's also true. You know, Penny and I have been married for 28 years and neither of us look anything like we did when we met each other. But I love Penny even more than I ever have, because Penny is, you know, Penny and I have been through hell. Like, Penny has proven to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that she loves me. She loves me enough to put up with me, which is really hard to do. And she knows that I love her because I really do my very best to create a home and a space and a life that she enjoys living, or I imagine she would have left me by now because she's smart enough to have anybody and do anything she wants. And it's the same with Angie. You know, we've all worked through our challenges, but we really do love each other. And I would just say that be careful when you start going into multiple partner relationships, because every time you add another person, this gets very complicated. So if you aren't very careful, you start having 3, 4 minds working in one thing, and the complications and the magnifications of imbalances get to be quite hard to juggle. Fortunately, I'd reached a level of maturity, as had Angie and Penny, before we got into that way of living, that we had the skills to handle it, and I would never go back now. So I've just taught you a few things about relationships. One, you are God experiencing itself, and that the first relationship you have to manage is the desire of God to live and to be and to create within yourself. And that happens to be what creates your mind, because you have a subject-object duality within yourself, and there is 2 points of sentience within each of you. Some of you have many more than that. The 2 points of sentience are: 1, your soul; 2, your ego. So inside of you, there's always a dialogue going on between the part of you that thinks it's you and the part of you that presents itself to the world in ways that are not congruent with the part of you that knows the truth of you. Now, that's where a story gap comes from, but the less of that you have, the more peace you have in yourself. This is why I tell people it's very dangerous to wear masks, because it makes for a very complex mental inner structure, and you don't know who's doing what. So that's the fundamental basis of relationship. If you can't handle this in yourself, you'll just magnify it in relationship with other people, and one of two things will happen. The other person will be involved enough to support you in learning to manage your own mind so that you can manage the relationship, or they will begin to resent you so much that it'll make your life miserable and the relationship will fall apart.